Order in the court. The judge's words boomed like thunder through the lofty room, shaking even the chandeliers hanging high above. The noise was so crisp, so absolute, that each and every whisper was erased instantly. Silence. Thick, pressing, the sort of silence where each and every breath sounds too harsh. Every eye, hundreds of eyes, broke at once, moving as one to a single person. Robyn Brown. She stood up gradually, her chair dragging against the glossy wood floor with a scrape that echoed into eternity. In shaking fingers she held a fat folder of documents, holding it clutched to her chest as if it were a shield against the gathering tempest. But no folder would keep her safe from this. Not today. Her heels clicked towards the witness stand, heavy with each step, as if chains were wrapped around her ankles. The click, 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 the only thing to be heard, and with each step, the tension grew like smoke. Robyn's expression was neatly put together, chin held high, lips compressed, but her eyes gave her away. She flicked them from left to right, looking for a friend in the ocean of icy glares. Fear gleamed in those eyes, but something else as well. Desperation. Christine, Janelle, and Meri sat across from one another on the other side of the courtroom. Years they had sat idly by while Robyn took center stage in Kody's world. She was the favorite, the one who couldn't be touched, the one who had pushed them slowly out of the way. But here, in this room, under these lights, there was a difference. The power balance had shifted. Christine's hands were clasped tightly in her lap, the knuckles white, the chest rising and falling in jerky breaths. Janelle hunched forward a little, her gaze locked on Robyn, with a mix of determination and sadness. And Meri sat virtually still, but there was a fire in her eyes. For so long, she had kept silent. For so long, she had been the shadow. Not today. The bailiff motioned Robyn to sit at the stand. The wooden seat creaked as she sat holding onto her folder as to a lifeline. The microphone was in front of her too close, projecting even the shallow sound of her anxious breaths. The judge leaned over, his robes black and austere, his eyes as sharp as glass. His voice broke through the silence with an unyielding tone. "Mrs. Brown, are you ready to tell the truth on oath?" Robyn's lips opened, but nothing issued at first. Her throat constricted, and she swallowed hard. Finally her voice escaped, low, quavery, but just loud enough to be heard. Yes, Your Honor." The judge arched an eyebrow, not believing her. "The truth, Mrs. Brown, not your version of it. Not tales. Truth, do you hear me?" Robyn nodded rapidly, her grip on the folder tightening. "Yes, I see." But she knew deep inside, truth was the one thing that could ruin her. The atmosphere inside the courtroom was thick, nearly claustrophobic. Newsmen occupied the rear rows, pens tapping rapidly against notebooks, cameras popping intermittently. The public had waited months for this moment. Waited to witness the woman widely believed to have destroyed a once harmonious family to be brought before the bar of justice. Kody Brown sat behind Robyn, face red and tense. His fists were clenched, veins throbbing on his neck, his eyes shooting angrily at his ex-wives. He muttered something to himself, but Robyn didn't risk turning around to hear it. She couldn't risk losing her concentration. Christine inched forward toward Janelle and whispered, though her voice still reached into the stillness. "She seems horrified." Janelle's eyes remained fixed on Robyn. "She should be." Meri, reserved but forceful, spoke at last, her voice low, contained. "Today is the day that everything changes." Robyn's inner struggle. Robyn shifted uncomfortably in her seat, the microphone capturing the soft whisper of papers in her folder. She wanted to appear strong, but every fiber of her body cried out weakness. She could sense the warmth of the glances bearing down upon her, searing her skin. She recalled all the nights she had convinced herself she was secure, that Kody loved her, that she was part of the family, and so nobody could touch her. Here sworn in, she felt less than tiny. What if they discover everything? What if the documents aren't sufficient? Her mind ran like wildfire. She glanced down at the folder once more. Bank statements, receipts, letters. She had been so precise in what she had taken, wanting to be sure that it was enough to make her appear innocent, misunderstood. And yet she knew Christine and Janelle had evidence of their own, more powerful, sharper, unshakable. The judge's warning. The judge rapped his gavel once, firm and authoritative. This courtroom is not a theater, Mrs. Brown. Each word that leaves your lips will be carefully considered. Each lie, each evasion will be revealed. Don't forget, you are sworn in. Robyn's gut nodded. She began to answer but caught herself, knowing that each word could deepen her hole. Instead she nodded slowly, tightening her grip on the folder. The judge turned his gaze to the other wives. Christine Brown, Janelle Brown, Meri Brown, your testimonies will be heard after Mrs. Brown. But remember, this court demands respect. There will be no shouting, no personal attacks, only truth. Christine's heart pounded, but she nodded. Janelle whispered, "We're ready." Meri simply stared at Robyn, unblinking. The crowd watches. A ripple of whispers spread across the gallery. Strangers murmuring their opinions. Is that her? Is that the pet wife? She does not seem so sure now. Do you believe she will confess what she did? The bailiff growled, "Quiet." And the room went silent once more. Robyn speaks. Barely. Robyn leaned in close to the microphone. Her hands trembled so that the papers shook loudly. She breathed in, attempting to calm her voice. "My name is Robyn Brown," she started, her voice unsteady. "And I cared about this family. Whatever I did because of them." Her words lacked conviction, were forced. The judge raised an eyebrow. Christine's mouth twisted into a thin, bitter smile. Janelle crossed her arms over her chest. Meri leaned back in her seat, as if seeing Robyn for the first time, without the facade. Robyn's voice cracked. "I never wanted to hurt anyone. I only wanted to protect what we had." The judge leaned forward. "Mrs. Brown, we are not here for vague sentiments. We are here for truth. And truth, Mrs. Brown, is not always convenient." Robyn swallowed hard. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, panic threatening to take over. For the first time in years, she felt cornered, exposed. And as Christine, Janelle and Meri observed, together at last after what seemed like an eternity, Robyn Brown came to understand. This courtroom was not hers. This was where the crown she so wore with such arrogance could be turned to dust. The judge's voice boomed, rich and authoritative. "Christine Brown, please step forward." Christine stood up from her chair. Her knees shook, but her heart blazed with a passion she hadn't felt in years. For so long, she had choked on her pain, smiled in betrayal, and attempted to keep her family intact. But now here, in this courtroom, she would be heard. The room leaned forward in the direction she was moving toward the stand. All eyes were on her, from the journalists taking furious notes in their notebooks to onlookers who had attended solely to be a part of something historic. Christine maintained her stare, though she could sense Robyn's burning glare in her back. As she made it to the front, she faced the judge, her voice shaking in the beginning, but strengthening with each sentence. "Your Honor, I held on to Kody's vision for years. I held on to the vision of family, unity, and sacrifice. But what I didn't notice, what I chose not to notice, was how Robyn drained us slowly, not just financially, but of trust, of hope, of love." Gasps filled the courtroom. Robyn squirmed in her seat, her hand tightening around her folder, until her knuckles were white. Christine continued, her voice cracking but unyielding. "She said we were creating something together. That every dollar, every sacrifice was for the benefit of our children. It wasn't true. It never was. Robyn vowed us a future, while she was secretly constructing walls to keep us out." The first blow lands. Robyn leapt from her chair, her voice high-pitched. "That's a lie. The judge slammed the gavel. Bang. "Mrs. Brown, you remain seated. You will get your turn to speak." The courtroom hummed. Christine did not blink. She stepped forward, waving a pile of papers in her shaking hand. "These are letters," she repeated, her voice heavy with emotion. "Letters Robyn wrote to Kody, concerning the family fund. She stated it was for us, for all of us. But for some reason, the money never made it back to us. It went into houses, jewelry, secret accounts." She looked over at Robyn, her eyes brimming with tears. I couldn't believe it. I kept telling myself that I was dreaming. But it's all here in black and white. She didn't just take our place in Kody's heart. She took our place in every aspect of his life. The gravity of her words hung in the air. The silence that ensued was louder than any yell. Janelle steps in. The judge nodded gravely. Thank you, Mrs. Christine Brown. You may step aside. Janelle Brown, please come forward. Janelle stood, her back straight, her face relaxed but her eyes burning. While Christine was the heart, Janelle was the backbone. She came forward, holding a manila envelope against the side of her arm. Your Honor, she said, speaking clearly and steadily. Christine has testified to the promises. I will testify to the evidence. She opened the envelope and put documents on the table. Bank statements, transfers, account overviews. The documents glowed in the courtroom lights. These, she went on, pointing at the records, are financial records following the money straight from our family account into Robyn's own accounts. Money intended for children's school fees, grocery shopping, even medical bills. The judge leaned forward, scanning the papers. Reporters wrote more quickly. A hush spread in the gallery. Janelle's voice broke for an instant as she continued. I tried to go at her. I asked her where the money was coming from, but she always had the same answer. It's for the family. You'll see later. She shook her head, her eyes welling up with tears. She struggled to keep in check. But later never came, just more excuses. Robyn's face went white, her mouth dropping in horror. That's not true. I was defending us. Kody instructed me to, enough. The judge sliced through her denial, with the precision of a knife. You will have your say when the time comes. The gallery burst into murmurs. Some gasped in amazement. Others nodded knowingly, as if they had suspected as much all along. Meri breaks her silence. The judge glanced at Meri. Mrs. Meri Brown, do you want to testify? Meri didn't budge for a very long time. She sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, lips shut tight. Then she slowly rose to her feet. With each step that brought her closer to the front of the room, it seemed the weight of the years of silence was pulling her down. By the time she arrived at the stand, her words were hardly louder than a whisper. I never thought I'd be here. I always believed that my silence was safer, that keeping the peace was greater than speaking out. She stopped, her eyes shimmering. But silence has a cost. Her eyes moved to Robyn, and for the first time her voice lost its softness. Robyn used our silence. My silence. She didn't merely steal Kody's time and love. She stole our pride. Every time I opened my mouth to say something, she reminded me that I wasn't important, that I was less. And I believed her. For years I believed her. A single tear made its way down her face, and she didn't brush it away. But I won't be silent today. Not here. Not today. The gallery of people remained still. The air was electric with tension. Even Kody, who had been growling in anger, was quiet. The courtroom erupts. Christine's eyes brimmed with tears as she reached over to squeeze Janelle's hand. Janelle placed her other hand on Meri's shoulder, the three women forming a silent bond that had been missing for years. The crowd could feel it. This wasn't just testimony. This was decades of pain spilling out in one collective voice. Robyn's calm cracked. She pounded her fists on the table, her voice trembling. This is all jealousy. Lies they couldn't deal with Kody loving me. This is all it is. The judge's gavel came down for the second time. Bang, bang. Mrs. Brown, you are out of order. Robyn returned to her seat, tears welling in her eyes. But the damage was done. The courtroom witnessed it. The cracks in her facade, the desperation seeping out. The judge gazed back at Christine, Janelle, and Meri. This court has heard your evidence. The charges are serious. The evidence will be carefully considered. He faced Robyn. You will have your turn to speak. But listen to this. Mrs. Brown, these are not trivial charges. These are issues of trust, money, and betrayal. Robyn sat rigidly, her fingers wrapped around the folder so tightly that it seemed as though she could rip it in two. Her eyes blinked fast, as she attempted to suppress the tears. For the first time, the court witnessed what she had struggled so hard to conceal. And as the judge called for a brief recess, the wives sat together, bonded by their pain but made stronger by it. Robyn, who was once above reproach, sat by herself. shaking under the reality of their words. The truth had been said at last, and there was no turning back. The bailiff came back through the short recess, and the courtroom door slammed behind her. Everyone scurried back to their seats, the whispers subsiding into a heavy stillness. The air seemed more dense now, as if the walls were holding their breath. Front and center, the judge sat up in his chair, gavel grasped firmly in hand. His eyes turned to Robyn Brown. "Mrs. Brown," he snapped. "Now it is your turn to answer." Everyone turned to her. Robyn froze for a second. Her hands clenched about the folder on her lap, as if her life depended on it. Her chest heaved rapidly, her face pale, lips shaking. Kody leaned in over the back of her chair, whispering frantically, "You've got this, Robyn. Just keep to the story. Don't let them see you shatter." Robyn weakly nodded. Although she did not feel the reassurance Kody was attempting to provide her, she was trapped, cornered. All of Christine's, Janelle's, and Meri's words rang on in her mind. But this was it, her one opportunity. She slowly stood up, holding her folder tightly, and walked over to the stand. The courtroom's eyes seared into her. Some were inquisitive, some critical, others salivating to watch her fail. She cleared her throat, her voice trembling at first. I loved this family," she started. "Everything I ever did was for us. For our children, for our future. These allegations, these accusations, they result from bitterness, from jealousy. They're not true." Her words echoed, but rang hollow. Robyn's defense. Robyn rummaged through the pages in her file, her hands shaking so hard that sheets fell onto the floor. The bailiff stooped to pick them up, but Robyn grabbed them hurriedly. Embarrassed, she fanned them out on the stand, like they were weapons. Receipts, statements, handwritten notes. "See?" she exclaimed desperately, her voice loudening. "These documents show that I was managing money responsibly. These are not falsehoods. These are household expenses. Groceries, utilities, children's clothing. Everything I did to keep us above water." The judge leaned forward, reading the papers with an impassive face. "Mrs. Brown, these are incomplete records. There are no detailed accounts of where the majority of this money went. Several of these receipts do not tally with the amount included in the bank statements earlier." Robyn's cheeks reddened. But they're real. I kept every crumpled bit, every paper. Why would I fake this?" Christine's voice sliced through the room, soft but hard as glass. "Because you always did." The gallery rustled with whispers. The gavel of the judge rang once. "Order." The cracks show Robyn's voice rose. Frantic, "They never accepted me. They never did from the first day I became a part of this family. They made me feel like an outsider. Everything I did was questioned. Everything I did was criticized. I was the only one who was even trying to make this work. I was the only one Kody could rely on." Her words rang through the room, but rather than sympathy, there was a thick, crushing silence. Janelle leaned forward, her eyes narrowing, trying to make things work. "You isolated us. You cut us off from him. You called it helping, but it was control. You didn't just want Kody. You wanted everything." Robyn's lips quivered. "That's not true. I gave up so much for this family. I sacrificed." Meri stood up at once, unable to contain herself. "Sacrifice? We were the sacrificers. We sacrificed years, decades. You arrived last. Yet you asked for everything. You took and took until all there was left for everyone else was nothing." The judge held up his hand, his voice thundering. "Order, Mrs. Meri Brown. You will stay seated until you are called again." Meri sank back down, but her gaze never left Robyn. The blaze in her eyes was unmistakable. The collapse. Robyn resorted to shuffling the papers once again, her hands slick, the ink on some of the receipts smudged from her fingers. She attempted to go on, her voice cracking. I did everything because nobody else would." Christine quit. Janelle gave up. Meri didn't care anymore. Someone had to do it. Someone had to ensure Kody wasn't left by himself. Her words tumbled out quickly, jumbled out of her control, and with each sentence her defense fell apart more. The judge scowled. "Mrs. Brown, your entire testimony is accusatory but lacks proof. Do you have evidence, direct evidence that these monies were expended as you testify?" Robyn's gaze flicked to Kody. He leaned forward once more, his voice barely above a whisper. Blame it on me. Blame me for telling you to. She swallowed hard, conflicted between saving herself and defending him. Her lips quivered, but she couldn't find the courage to sacrifice Kody. Not yet. She shook her head deliberately. Instead, I don't have the proof you're looking for. A murmur ran through the crowd. Gasps, whispers, even a few stifled laughs. Reporters furiously scribbled down what they had. Robyn admits lack of proof. The judge's interrogation. The judge leaned forward, eyes glinting. Mrs. Brown, this court is not interested in family disputes. It is interested in facts. So far you have presented emotion, and no evidence anyone can prove. Can you account for the missing money? The deposits into private accounts? The irregularities in your accounts? Robyn's mouth opened, but no words emerged. Her throat constricted. Her chest rose and fell. Tears threatened to overflow. I don't know how to explain everything, she whispered at last. The words remained suspended in the air, like a verdict of death. Christine's eyes snapped closed, tears running down her face. Not of grief, but of vindication. Janelle let out a sharp breath, a tiny nod to herself. Meri leaned back, her lips compressed into a thin, bitter line. Robyn's shoulders drooped. She had walked in with papers clutched to her chest like a shield, but now they seemed like scraps of nothing. Her confident tone had dried up into a desperate whine. The turning point. The judge rapped his gavel once, firmly but not aggressively. This court has heard your answer, Mrs. Brown. While your feelings are documented, they do not take the place of facts. The testimony of your other wives and the evidence presented is against your words. Unless you can bring something more concrete, this court is forced to have to assume that theirs are true statements. Robyn fell back into her chair, the folder slipping from her knee to the floor. Documents flew in all directions, drifting about the courtroom like the shattered pieces of her case. Kody stooped to pick them up, but the bailiff held him back, shaking his head. Robyn crouched down, desperately trying to retrieve them, but her hands trembled too badly. It was a pitiful scene, and it was visible to the crowd. The proud wife who had once stood tall on her knees begging for scraps. She ultimately slumped into her chair, defeated, her tears falling freely now. Kody reached out and touched her shoulder, though even his touch resembled frustration rather than consolation. The room's reaction. Christine, Janelle, and Meri sat in a group, bound together in silent strength. For the first time they had a sense that their voices counted. The gallery hummed softly, whispers circulating. She's coming apart. She has nothing. They finally stood up to her. The judge pounded the gavel again. That's enough. Closing statements will be made in this court tomorrow. And as Robyn shook, holding her soggy tissues and scattered documents, she accepted the truth she had dreaded all along. Her defense had failed, and nothing, no folder, no apologies, no tears could reassemble it. The air in the courtroom was thick, as if all the people in the room were holding their breath waiting for the storm to release. The judge's gavel sat quietly in front of him, but the real gravity was in the voices that were about to be heard. This was it. Final arguments. The final opportunity for the truth to cut through decades of deceit, betrayal, and broken vows. Christine was in front. She inhaled deeply, shakily, her hands grasping the podium's edge. Her eyes were brimming with tears, but her stance was resolute, unyielding. She wasn't here alone. She was here for every wife who had ever been sidelined, for every kid who had ever felt less beloved because someone else was more favored. Your Honor, Christine started, her voice shaking but with a passion that commanded everyone in the room to listen. We are not here because of money or property. We are here because of betrayal. Years of broken promises. Years of being told family was first, when really Robyn was first. She caught her breath. The courtroom held its breath, her words cutting through the silence like a blade. Christine stared at Robyn, who sat shaking in her seat at the defense table. You didn't just join this family, Robyn. You stole it. You drove Kody away from us. You alienated us. You drained resources that were intended for all of us. And when we were crying out, when we were pleading for equity, you smiled while our hurt was nothing to you. Robyn shook her head fiercely. muttering to herself under her breath, "That's not true. That's not true." But Christine's voice became more powerful. "This was not a perfect family. We were all imperfect. But when you arrived, you did not mend things. You shattered them some more. And now, Your Honor, all we hope for is justice. Not cruelty, not revenge. Just justice. So none of us will ever again be silenced or treated as disposable." Christine's tears finally spilled, but she did not brush them away. She allowed the court to witness her pain. She allowed Robyn to feel it. The judge nodded slowly, visibly shaken by her testimony. Now it was Janelle's turn. She stood quietly, but her eyes blazed with years of pent-up rage and disillusionment. Where Christine's shaken emotion was fragile and vulnerable, Janelle's voice was firm, such as a mother defending her children. "Your Honor," she asserted, waving a pile of papers, "this is not merely a matter of broken promises. This is a matter of actions. Calculating, intentional actions." Robyn diverted money that was intended to feed the whole family. She set up hidden accounts, moved money without informing anyone, and all the while asserting was for the greater good. She gazed directly at the judge, her voice bitter. But the greater good never arrived. There was no improved future constructed. Just walls. Walls between her and Kody, and the rest of us scrambling, fighting to feed our children. Robyn covered her face with her hands, her tears softly sobbing. But Janelle did not desist. "I saw my kids go without as Robyn's kids had everything. I saw resources disappear while we were instructed to be patient. Trust the process. But Your Honor, transparency without trust is just a scam. And that is what Robyn introduced into this family. Manipulation and control." Her voice cracked only for a moment, where her pain broke through the strength. "I'm not here because I dislike her. I'm here because my kids deserve better. Christine's kids deserve better. Even Meri's kids, who have suffered in silence, deserve better. This case is not just about the wives. It's about an entire generation that had to live in the shadow of favoritism and dishonesty." The courtroom murmured, whispers spreading like wildfire. Janelle's words were undeniable. Hard evidence combined with raw emotion. Finally it was Meri's turn. She rose slowly, her steps heavy as though carrying years of silence on her shoulders. Everyone leaned forward, because Meri had always been the quiet one, the loyal one, the one who endured. And now she was finally going to speak. Her voice was gentle at first, almost breakable. "Your Honor, I remained silent for a long time. Too long. I believed that my silence would maintain the peace. I believed perhaps if I waited long enough, things would shift. But all my silence did was empower Robyn further." Meri's lips trembled as she confronted Robyn, her eyes brimming with tears. "You didn't steal Kody's love. You stole our dignity. You made us feel invisible. Every time you were given preference, every time things were decided behind closed doors, every time we were told we weren't enough, it cut deeper than any knife." She returned to the judge, her voice increasing with each sentence. "I might have been the quiet one, but I have a voice today, and I am using it. Not for myself, but for the family that was broken apart, for the years we can't get back, for the dreams that were crushed. We are not seeking cruelty. We are not seeking to watch Robyn decimated. We are simply seeking truth to be relevant, for justice to be visible, so that our suffering would at last be meaningful." Meri dried her tears, but her voice again never faltered. "Your Honor, we have a right to be free from her. We have a right to recover." The subsequent silence was crushing. The air itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Robyn, shaking, finally raised her head. Mascara smeared down her cheeks, her hands shaking. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I thought I was keeping us safe. I thought I was doing what Kody wanted. I never wanted to ruin the family." But no one comforted her. No one believed the words anymore. The judge regarded her intently, his expression impassive. The wives had told their truth, and Robyn's tears came too little, too late. At that moment the emotional line had been crossed. The courtroom no longer regarded Robyn as a wife. They regarded her as the wedge that destroyed an empire. And as the judge sat poised to make his ruling, everyone in that courtroom knew the family would never be the same. The courtroom was quiet enough. You could hear the whisper of the air conditioning. All of us leaned forward. Spectators, journalists, even the bailiff standing by the door.
The air was heavy with expectation, each heart pounding slightly harder. As the judge pushed his glasses up his nose and rearranged the last papers on his desk, Robyn sat shaking at the defense table. Her hands were folded so tightly that her knuckles had become white, her face smeared with tears. Kody sat next to her, jaw set, fists clenched, like a lion locked in a cage. His eyes flitted hotly toward Christine, Janelle, and Meri, who sat together, their hands clasped together on the table in front of them. For years they hadn't been whole. They were together. The judge cleared his throat, the thunderous sound resonating through the room. This court has thoroughly considered the evidence submitted. Testimonies have been heard, documents reviewed, and the consequences of these actions on the Brown family taken into account. Robyn took a nervous breath, muttering silent prayers. Kody grumbled under his breath. Come on, come on. The judge's tone turned stern. The evidence indicates a repeated pattern of financial impropriety and dishonesty. Mrs. Robyn Brown had secret bank accounts, diverted family resources, and managed funds in a way that served herself and her immediate family, while ignoring the equal rights of the other wives and children. Gasps spread throughout the courtroom. Robyn shook her head furiously. No, that's not true. I was instructed to do it. I was instructed to guard the family. The judge held up a strict hand. Mrs. Brown, you will not speak until I am through. Robyn slumped back in her chair, hiding her face. Her sobs whispered softly.
The judge went on, his tone unbending. Christine, Janelle, and Meri Brown have testified in a clear and consistent fashion. Their hurt is authentic, their losses real. The court cannot disregard the significant emotional and financial damage caused by Robyn Brown's conduct. Christine gripped Janelle's hand beneath the table. Meri shut her eyes, a lone tear falling down her cheek. The judge's words hit like hammer blows. This court adjudges Mrs. Robyn Brown guilty of financial impropriety, manipulation, and breach of trust in the family arrangement. Immediately she is deprived of all management of common assets and family funds. Custodianship will be shared equally between Christine, Janelle, and Meri Brown. The courtroom erupted in a cacophony of noise, gasps, murmurs, even applause from several daring spectators. The gavel hit the desk sharply. Bang, bang. Order in the court, the judge thundered. But in that chaos, one sound cut louder than all others, Kody's roar. He leapt from his seat, slamming his fist onto the table so hard the papers scattered. This is outrageous. This is a setup. You're all against us. Robyn did nothing wrong. Nothing. His voice was hoarse, spitting fury at the wives across the room. The bailiff hesitantly moved forward, but the judge shot Kody a cold glare. Mr. Brown, one more outburst and you will be removed from this courtroom. But Kody wasn't done. He stood red-faced with anger, veins bulging on his temples. He jabbed a shaking finger in Christine's direction. You did this. You poisoned them against Robyn. You've always been jealous, always undermining my marriage. And you, Janelle, you stabbed me in the back. After everything I gave you. Janelle stood up slowly, serene amidst the tempest. You didn't give it to us, Kody. We created it ourselves. And Robyn stole it. Her steady, controlled voice shut off even Kody's fury for a moment. Christine stood at her side, shaking but firm. We didn't poison anything, Kody. The truth spoke for itself. You just chose not to see it. Meri, who had long remained in the background, also rose. Her tone was as sharp as a knife. And perhaps, Kody, this has nothing to do with us betraying you. Perhaps it's just about you betraying us again and again. The courtroom crackled with tension. For the first time, Kody had no response. His lips parted, but no words escaped them. His face twisted in rage, but deep inside he knew it was over. Robyn grasped for his hand, her voice breaking. Kody, speak up. Make this right. But Kody pulled his hand back, pacing in tighter circles, cursing under his breath like a shipwrecked sailor. The judge slammed the gavel again. Bang! Order! The ultimate decision resounded like a death sentence over Robyn's meticulously constructed world. This court hereby rules in favor of Christine, Janelle, and Meri Brown. All shared family properties will be divided equally amongst them. Robyn Brown will no longer have any legal power over family finances. Case closed. Bang! The last gavel blow was thunderous. Christine sat down in her chair, putting her hands to her face and crying tears of relief. Janelle hugged her to her, clasping her tightly. Meri moved in. The three women together for the first time in 40 years. It was not triumph they sensed, it was liberty. In the corner of the room, Robyn broke down. Her body spasmed with uncontrollable sobbing as she hid her face in her hands. No, no, no. It can't be happening. I did everything for them. But nobody got up to hold her. Not the wives, not the onlookers, not even Kody. Kody remained rooted, gaping at the judge's bench as if the decision had pulled the floor out from under him. The empire he had constructed, the power he had struggled so tenaciously to preserve, had just been shattered before his eyes. He wheeled on Robyn, his features contorted in revulsion. You assured me this wouldn't occur. You told me you had it in hand. Robyn grasped for him frantically. Kody, don't leave me. We can make this work. We can still, but Kody recoiled, his shaking hands, the tempest of anger and disdain etched in his features. He did not utter a single word. He just turned and blazed out of the courtroom, flinging the doors shut behind him. The clang rang out like the slamming of a coffin. Robyn was left standing alone. The wives passed by her, heads high, in triumph together. Christine gave her a final glance, not cruelly, but with a pitiful kind of regret. Janelle gave no look whatsoever. Meri hesitated only long enough to whisper, "You can't construct happiness on the destruction of others, Robyn. Now you know." And together, they walked out, strong in their footsteps, unbreakable in their bond. The cameras clicking outside the courtroom blazed and flashed, reporters yelling questions. Christine, how do you feel about the verdict? Janelle, what does this signify about your future? Meri, do you believe justice was served? The three women looked at each other, and Christine simply replied, "We're free." Back in court, Robyn slumped over in her chair, crying into her hands. She finally understood what real loneliness was like. The authority she had once wielded, the privilege she had once enjoyed, the kingdom she thought was hers. It was all lost, not with a bang, but with the ring of a gavel.